What if Onslaught entered the Star Trek universe? The psychic nightmare of the Federation. What if the Federation's greatest enemy wasn't a hostile empire, an unstoppable armada, or a godlike cosmic being, but a thought? What if one day every telepath in the Alpha Quadrant heard the same voice at the exact same moment? A voice that did not speak. A voice that screamed. What if Starfleet captains began turning their weapons on their own crews? What if Vulcan logic collapsed into madness? What if the Borg Collective suddenly experienced fear for the first time in its existence? And what if the source of it all came from another universe entirely? Far beyond the galactic barrier, beyond subspace, beyond dimensions themselves, something impossible was approaching. Not a man, not a machine, not even a god. A nightmare born from the darkest corners of psychic power. A being forged from hatred, grief, rage, and limitless mental energy. His name was Onslaught. And by the time the Federation learned that name, it was already too late. The stars themselves seemed quieter in the year 2385. The Federation had survived countless crises. The Dominion War had ended. The Borg threat remained dangerous but contained. Exploration had resumed. New worlds joined the Federation every year. For many it felt like a new golden age. Captain Elias Rourke of the USS Horizon believed that too. Standing on the bridge, he watched stars streak past the view screen as the ship cruised through an uncharted region near the galactic barrier. Long-range sensors still detecting anomalies? He asked. His science officer nodded. Yes, Captain. The readings continue to increase. Rourke frowned. The anomaly had first appeared 36 hours earlier. At first it seemed harmless. Then impossible. Subspace fluctuations. Temporal distortions. Gravitational waves. And beneath them all, something else. Something sensors couldn't classify. Any theories? The Vulcan officer hesitated. That alone was unsettling. No logical explanation currently exists. The bridge fell silent. No logical explanation. Words Starfleet officers never wanted to hear. Suddenly alarms erupted across the ship. Captain? The tactical officer's voice cracked. We've detected a massive energy surge. The view screen exploded with blinding white light. Reality itself appeared to bend. Stars twisted. Space folded inward. A vortex larger than a solar system opened directly ahead. Every crew member stared in disbelief. The anomaly wasn't forming. It was arriving. Something was coming through. Something enormous. The horizon shook violently. Systems flickered. Crew members collapsed as telepathic feedback surged throughout the ship. Several Betazoid officers screamed simultaneously. One collapsed unconscious. Another began crying uncontrollably. A third whispered the same sentence repeatedly. It's looking at us. It's looking at us. It's looking at us. Captain Rourke felt ice run through his veins. What is looking at us? No answer came. Because the vortex suddenly answered for them. A pulse erupted from its center. Not energy. Not radiation. Thought. Pure thought. The psychic wave raced across space at impossible speeds. Across sectors. Across empires. Across worlds. Across minds. Within seconds millions heard it. A scream. Not through ears. Through consciousness itself. On Betazoids, entire cities collapsed into panic. On Vulcan, meditation chambers erupted in chaos. Even hidden Romulan telepaths fell to their knees. Every sensitive mind experienced the same vision. A giant armored figure floating within endless darkness. Red eyes. A burning psychic core. And hatred. Infinite hatred. Then the vision vanished, leaving terror behind. Thousands of light years away, deep within Federation space, the crew of the USS Enterprise suddenly felt it too. The bridge froze. Several officers grabbed their heads. Counselor Deanna Troi gasped. The sensation struck her like a physical blow. For a brief moment she felt something impossible. Not emotion. Emotions. Billions of them. Rage. Fear. Loss. Pain. Despair. All fused into a single consciousness. Picard immediately noticed her distress. Counselor? Troi slowly looked up. Her eyes were filled with horror. I've never felt anything like it. What was it? She struggled to answer. Because every word sounded absurd. Finally she whispered. It felt like a mind. Silence filled the bridge. Then she added the part that terrified everyone. A mind larger than worlds. Far away, another civilization was experiencing something equally unprecedented. The Borg Collective. For centuries the collective had consumed civilizations without hesitation. Fear was irrelevant. Emotion was irrelevant. Nothing truly threatened perfection. Until now. Across countless cubes, drones froze. Processing nodes overloaded. Entire sections of the hive mind went dark. For the first time since its creation, the collective encountered a signal it could not assimilate. A consciousness that dwarfed entire unimatrices. A mind that did not join. Did not submit. Did not integrate. It dominated. The collective reacted immediately. Threat assessment protocols activated across thousands of vessels. One designation echoed through Borg space. Unknown alpha threat. Maximum priority. But even the Borg had no idea how small that classification truly was. Because inside the dimensional vortex, something was awakening. Memories returned slowly. Fragments of another reality. Mutants. Wars. Heroes. Failures. Hatred. The entity known as Onslaught had once nearly consumed an entire universe. Now it drifted through an unfamiliar cosmos. A new galaxy. A new playground. A new civilization. His consciousness expanded outward. He touched minds across light years effortlessly. And what he found fascinated him. Telepaths. Empaths. Psionic species. Collective intelligences. Artificial consciousness. Entire civilizations linked together through thought. This universe was rich. Richer than his own. A feast beyond imagination. Onslaught smiled. Stars trembled. Across the horizon's bridge, crew members suddenly screamed as every monitor activated simultaneously. The screens should have displayed static. Instead they showed a face. A massive armored face with burning crimson eyes. No transmission existed. No signal had been received. The image simply appeared. As though reality itself obeyed its will. Then the being spoke. Not through speakers. Inside every mind aboard the ship. Inside every mind across nearby sectors. One sentence. Come. Certain. Terrifying. I can hear all of you. The crew stood frozen. Millions across the Federation stood frozen. Even distant Borg drones paused. Because they all understood one horrifying truth. This wasn't first contact. This was an announcement. And somewhere deep within the vast psychic presence now spreading through the galaxy, Onslaught had already found something that interested him. Something ancient. Something powerful. Something hidden beneath the surface of Federation space. A secret whose existence predated the Federation itself. And the moment he reached toward it, the entire galaxy began to shake. Do you want me to continue? What if the terrifying voice that had invaded every mind in the Federation wasn't searching for conquest at all, but for something buried so deeply in galactic history that even the oldest civilizations had forgotten it existed? And what if that hidden secret was about to awaken because Onslaught had merely looked in its direction? Across the Alpha Quadrant, panic spread faster than any starship could travel. The Federation had faced Borg invasions, Dominion fleets, temporal wars, and cosmic anomalies. Yet none of those threats had struck at the very foundation of civilization itself. This one had. Because every citizen now carried the same memory. The same face. The same voice. And no one knew how to remove it. Starfleet Command transformed overnight into a war room. Admirals crowded emergency briefing chambers. Scientific councils worked around the clock. Telepathic specialists from dozens of species were summoned. Every report sounded worse than the last. Entire Betazoid communities were experiencing collective nightmares. Vulcan meditation masters reported unprecedented mental disturbances. Even species with only minor empathic abilities felt an invisible pressure growing inside their thoughts. Something was touching them, watching them, learning them, and worst of all, enjoying it. At Starfleet headquarters, Admiral Picard stood before a gathering of the Federation's greatest minds. The room remained unusually quiet. Not because they lacked ideas. Because every theory sounded impossible. A Tellarite scientist finally broke the silence. Perhaps this is some form of subspace consciousness. No, said a Vulcan immediately. The scale exceeds any known subspace entity. A Betazoid expert shook her head. I felt it directly. Everyone looked toward her. Her hands trembled slightly. That wasn't a species. Then what was it? She swallowed. It felt like an entire civilization compressed into one mind. The room grew colder. Because everyone knew what that implied. A mind powerful enough to rival worlds. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, Onslaught drifted through interstellar darkness. Yet drifted wasn't the correct word. He barely moved physically. He didn't need to. His consciousness expanded like an ocean spreading across reality. Every thought became visible. Every dream became accessible. Every fear became nourishment. Millions slept that night, and millions dreamed of him. Children saw red eyes staring from distant stars. Scientists dreamed of galaxies collapsing into psychic fire. Starship crews dreamed of hearing voices beneath the hum of their engines. Each dream ended the same way. The giant figure standing at the center of an endless void. Waiting, watching, smiling. Onslaught experienced every nightmare simultaneously. Every fear strengthened him. Every panic expanded his reach. This universe was remarkably vulnerable. Telepaths connected minds. Subspace linked civilizations. Communication networks stretched across entire quadrants. To most species these were strengths. To Onslaught they were pathways. Roads leading directly into the consciousness of the galaxy itself. Then he felt it again. That ancient presence. Hidden. Dormant. Enormous. Far beneath layers of space-time. His attention narrowed. Reality trembled. And somewhere near the galactic core, something ancient stirred. At first nobody noticed. The sensors of a lone Federation research station detected unusual readings. Then another station. Then another. Energy fluctuations. Subspace distortions. Localized gravitational anomalies. Nothing catastrophic. Not yet. But the disturbances were spreading. And they all pointed toward the same region. A region long considered unremarkable. A forgotten sector explored centuries ago. A sector that suddenly seemed very important. Captain Rourke and the battered crew of the USS Horizon were among the first assigned to investigate. The ship had barely recovered from its encounter with Onslaught. Several crew members remained hospitalized. Others requested transfers. A few resigned entirely. The psychological impact was devastating. Yet duty remained. The Horizon entered the affected sector 3 days later. What they found made every officer on board uneasy. Space felt wrong. Stars appeared distorted. Sensor readings contradicted visual observations. Distances fluctuated. Time measurements varied by fractions of seconds. The region behaved as though reality itself were becoming unstable. "Captain," the science officer reported, "I'm detecting enormous energy concentrations beneath normal space." "Beneath?" "Yes." Rourke frowned. "Beneath space." Even saying it sounded ridiculous. Then the tactical officer interrupted. "We're receiving a transmission." "Source?" "No source." Rourke's stomach tightened immediately. The main view screen flickered. Onslaught appeared. No static. No distortion. Just absolute clarity. As if he stood directly before them. "You search for answers." His voice echoed inside every mind aboard the ship. Rourke forced himself to speak. "What are you?" The red eyes brightened. For a brief moment something almost resembled amusement. "I am what remains when power outlives morality." The bridge remained silent. Onslaught continued. "Your galaxy hides many things. What do you want?" This time the answer came instantly. "The truth." Then the image vanished. Every system returned to normal. Yet the encounter left one terrifying realization. He wasn't attacking. He was investigating. And somehow that possibility felt worse. Because if a being like Onslaught was searching for something, what would happen when he found it? The answer began revealing itself elsewhere. Far inside Borg territory. A massive cube floated near the edge of a transwarp corridor. Thousands of drones operated normally. Millions of voices merged within the collective. Then suddenly, everything stopped. The cube lost power. Not gradually. Instantly. Every drone froze. Every system shut down. Every process ended. Silence. Absolute silence. Seconds later the vessel exploded. No attack. No weapon. No visible cause. Just annihilation. Across the collective, panic spread. An emotion the Borg were never meant to experience. Additional cubes disappeared. Communication nodes collapsed. Entire sectors of Borg space went dark. The collective searched desperately for explanations. And eventually discovered a horrifying pattern. Each destroyed vessel had encountered psychic traces linked to Onslaught. He wasn't attacking physically. He was entering their network. Testing it. Learning it. The Borg possessed one of the largest collective consciousnesses in the galaxy. Which made them irresistible. A challenge. A puzzle. A potential weapon. And Onslaught loved all three. Deep within the hive mind, something unprecedented occurred. A fragment of Onslaught touched the collective directly. For less than 1 second. Yet that second changed everything. Millions of drones experienced individuality. Millions of suppressed memories resurfaced. Millions remembered lives they had forgotten. Families. Worlds, names, lost. Then it vanished. The collective survived. But it was damaged, wounded psychologically. For the first time, the Borg feared assimilation themselves. Meanwhile, hidden beyond known Federation territory, another ancient force observed events with growing concern. The Q continuum. Within dimensions incomprehensible to mortal minds, countless Q monitored the unfolding crisis. Rarely did anything attract their collective attention. This did. One Q watched projections of countless futures. Each future ended badly. Entire galaxies consumed. Timelines collapsing. Civilizations erased. Reality itself fractured. Another Q spoke. Can he truly threaten this universe? The answer came quietly. He already is. The continuum fell silent. Because the projections revealed something deeply troubling. Onslaught's arrival was not the disaster. It was merely the trigger. The real catastrophe remained hidden. Waiting. Sleeping. And every moment Onslaught searched for it, he moved closer to awakening it. Back in Federation space, Captain Rourke's investigation finally uncovered something astonishing. Beneath the unstable sector lay traces of ancient technology. Not Federation. Not Romulan. Not Vulcan. Not even Iconian. Older. Far older. Millions of years older. The technology stretched across entire star systems. Buried beneath planets. Inside stars. Hidden within subspace itself. A network. An impossible network. And every fragment pointed toward a central location. A location currently being approached by Onslaught. When the final coordinates appeared on the view screen, the bridge fell silent. Because the destination possessed a name found only in the oldest and most obscure records. A name connected to beings whose power rivaled gods. A name whispered only in myths. The Preservers. And somewhere ahead, beyond known space, Onslaught had already arrived first. As he reached toward the heart of their forgotten machine, ancient systems dormant for millions of years suddenly activated. Across thousands of worlds, hidden devices awakened. Across the galaxy, sealed vaults opened. Across reality itself, something began to rise. And for the first time since entering the Star Trek universe, even Onslaught looked surprised. Do you want me to continue? What if the ancient machine Onslaught had awakened was never meant to be found by anyone? Not by the Federation, not by the Borg, not even by the godlike beings who once ruled the stars. And what if the moment it activated, every civilization in the galaxy unknowingly began counting down toward extinction? Far beyond the borders of Federation space, hidden within a region absent from most star charts, Onslaught floated before a structure unlike anything he had encountered. Entire solar systems had been reshaped around it. Stars orbited according to impossible geometries. Planets moved along paths that defied conventional physics. From a distance, it resembled a cluster of suns. Up close it looked more like a machine. A machine the size of a civilization. Ancient. Silent. Sleeping. Or at least it had been sleeping. Now vast rivers of energy surged through its colossal framework. Golden currents raced between stars. Subspace trembled. Reality bent. Millions of dormant systems awakened one after another. And at the center of it all stood Onslaught. Watching. Learning. Listening. The machine was speaking. Not with words. With memories. Fragments of information flooded into his consciousness. Ancient builders. Impossible technologies. Galactic engineering on a scale beyond imagination. The Preservers. For ages, countless civilizations had speculated about them. Some considered them myths. Others believed they were responsible for seeding intelligent life across the galaxy. The truth was far stranger. The Preservers had not merely guided life. They had prepared for something. Something they feared. Something so terrible that they constructed this machine millions of years before their disappearance. A safeguard. A prison. A warning. Onslaught's crimson eyes narrowed. For the first time since arriving in this universe, genuine curiosity consumed him. Because whatever terrified the Preservers might actually be worthy of his attention. Across Federation space, the consequences became impossible to ignore. Long-range sensors detected energy spikes throughout every major quadrant. Subspace communication networks suffered interruptions. Navigation systems produced conflicting coordinates. Even warp travel became increasingly unstable. Starfleet vessels reported strange phenomena. Ghost signals. Temporal distortions. Entire star systems briefly appearing where they should not exist. The galaxy itself seemed to be malfunctioning. At Starfleet headquarters, emergency meetings had become constant. Admiral Picard stood before a massive holographic display showing the expanding crisis. Dozens of sectors glowed red. Every hour the situation worsened. Every hour more anomalies appeared. And every hour one question remained unanswered. What exactly had awakened? A young science officer approached. "Sir, we've received a report from Vulcan." Picard looked up. "What kind of report?" The officer hesitated. "Psychic casualties." The room grew quiet. "Explain." "Telepaths across multiple worlds are experiencing the same visions." Picard's expression darkened. "Onslaught." "No, sir." The answer surprised everyone. "No." The officer activated a hologram. An image appeared. Not a face. Not a creature. A door. An enormous black door floating in endless darkness. Millions had seen it. Thousands described it identically. No variation. No discrepancy. Every witness reported the same impossible dream. A door. And something trying to get out. The implications chilled everyone present. Because shared psychic hallucinations on that scale should have been impossible. Unless something was broadcasting them. Somewhere. To everyone. At the same time. Meanwhile, deep inside the Borg Collective, chaos intensified. Entire unimatrices experienced instability. Drones disconnected unexpectedly. Queens struggled to maintain control. The Collective had survived wars against Species 8472, Federation resistance, and countless adversaries. This was different. The threat wasn't external. It was psychological. Every time the Collective attempted to analyze Onslaught, fragments of his consciousness infiltrated their systems. Like a virus. Like a predator. Like something studying prey. The Borg adapted. They always adapted. Yet adaptation failed repeatedly. Because Onslaught wasn't technological. He wasn't biological. He was conceptual. A living psychic catastrophe. And the more the Borg studied him, the more they realized an uncomfortable truth. He wasn't the greatest threat approaching. Something else occupied his attention. Something he himself was investigating. For the first time in Borg history, strategic simulations reached a disturbing conclusion. If Onslaught feared something, the Collective should fear it too. Back at the ancient machine, Onslaught continued extracting information. Entire archives unfolded before him. Millions of years of hidden history. Civilizations long erased. Wars forgotten by time. The rise and fall of cosmic powers. Then he found the answer. The reason for the machine's existence. The reason the preservers had vanished. The reason reality itself seemed unstable. And for the briefest moment, Onslaught became silent. The machine had not been built to imprison a species. Nor a weapon. Nor a god. It had been built to imprison a consciousness. A consciousness born before most stars existed. A mind so vast that entire galaxies function like neurons within its awareness. The preservers called it by many names. The devourer of possibilities. The dreamer beneath time. The endless mind. Yet one description appeared more frequently than all others. The first thought. According to the archives, this entity did not destroy worlds conventionally. It consumed futures. Possibilities vanished around it. Civilizations lost the ability to evolve. Timelines collapsed into singular outcomes. Reality narrowed. Life stagnated. Entire galaxies slowly died. The preservers had sacrificed everything to contain it. And now, the prison was weakening. Not because Onslaught intended to free it, but because his psychic presence resonated with the prison itself. Two impossible minds interacting across dimensions. A phenomenon never anticipated by the builders. The consequences were already unfolding. Throughout the galaxy, reality cracks appeared. Tiny at first. Almost invisible. Then larger. Entire ships briefly flickered between alternate timelines. People remembered events that never occurred. Children spoke languages no one had taught them. Scientists discovered equations before forgetting them moments later. The fabric of existence was unraveling. And no one understood why. No one except one observer. A familiar figure materialized aboard the Enterprise without warning. Crew members spun around immediately. Q stood casually near the captain's chair. Smiling. Which somehow made everything worse. Picard's eyes narrowed. Q. Jean-Luc. You usually appear when something is terribly wrong. Q sighed dramatically. That's a hurtful reputation. Is it inaccurate? The smile disappeared. Instantly. And that frightened everyone present. Because Q rarely stopped smiling. Yes, Q said quietly. This time something is terribly wrong. The bridge fell silent. Picard stepped forward. What is it? Q looked toward the stars. For the first time, uncertainty appeared in his eyes. Do you know what makes your species fascinating? No. You always assume reality is stable. Nobody spoke. Q continued. You believe stars remain stars. You believe history remains history. You believe tomorrow exists. His tone grew darker. But what happens when reality itself develops a predator? The bridge felt colder. Even Q seemed uncomfortable discussing it. And that alone was terrifying. Picard stared at him. Can Onslaught be stopped? Q looked directly at him. The answer came immediately. Yes. Relief swept through the room, lasting only seconds. Because Q continued. But stopping him may no longer matter. Every officer froze. What does that mean? Q's gaze drifted toward deep space. Toward the ancient machine. Toward the prison weakening with every passing moment. It means, he said softly, something far older has started waking up. At that exact moment, across millions of worlds, the shared dream returned. The black door. The endless darkness. The sensation of something pressing against the other side. This time the dream changed. For the first time. The door moved. Not much. Just a few centimeters. A tiny gap. A tiny opening. Yet through that opening emerged a single beam of crimson light. And every dreamer heard the same whisper. A whisper so ancient it seemed older than existence itself. Who awakened me? Then the dream ended. And across the galaxy billions woke up screaming. Do you want me to continue? What if the whisper heard by billions wasn't a threat, but a question? And what if the being asking it genuinely didn't understand how dangerous its awakening truly was? The answer began revealing itself in the most terrifying way possible. Not through war. Not through invasion. But through curiosity. Across the Federation, reports flooded Starfleet faster than analysts could process them. The nightmares were no longer confined to sleep. People saw glimpses of the black door while awake. Pilots reported seeing it reflected in cockpit windows. Scientists spotted it briefly inside laboratory monitors. Children drew it despite never hearing descriptions of the phenomenon. The image was spreading through civilization like a living idea. An infection of thought. Yet the truly disturbing detail emerged from psychological evaluations. Those exposed to the visions felt compelled toward something. Not violence. Not fear. Direction. As if some distant presence were unconsciously calling them closer. Millions experienced the sensation. A pull. A yearning. A need to understand what waited behind the door. Entire populations became obsessed. And somewhere beyond known space Onslaught felt it too. He floated within the heart of the preserver machine as streams of ancient data continued pouring into his consciousness. For perhaps the first time in his existence, he had encountered something he could not immediately dominate. The first thought. A mind older than civilizations. Older than empires. Perhaps older than the very concepts of civilization and empire themselves. Yet Onslaught did not feel fear. He felt challenge. And challenge had always fascinated him. The psychic giant extended his awareness deeper into the prison. The response came immediately. Something looked back. Reality shuddered. Entire star systems flickered. Across thousands of light years, sensitive minds collapsed unconscious. The contact lasted less than a second. Yet it was enough. Enough for both entities to learn something important. The first thought discovered it was no longer alone. And Onslaught discovered something impossible. The consciousness behind the prison dwarfed his own. Not slightly. Not significantly. Completely. The realization should have angered him. Instead it excited him. Because throughout his existence, no opponent had ever occupied a higher plane of psychic existence. Until now. Meanwhile, aboard the Enterprise, Q remained unusually serious. Crew members found that more unsettling than any direct threat. Q was arrogant. Playful. Mocking. His confidence had always seemed limitless. Now that confidence appeared fractured. Picard noticed immediately. You've seen this before. Q glanced toward him. Not exactly. But you know what it is. Q hesitated. A rare occurrence. The continuum knows fragments. Then tell us. The omnipotent being sighed. Your species has a very unfortunate habit. Picard folded his arms. Which is? You assume consciousness requires a brain. The bridge remained silent. Q activated a projection. Galaxies appeared. Nebulae. Stars. The entire cosmic web. What if a mind became large enough that physical form stopped mattering? The hologram expanded. Clusters of galaxies connected together. Massive structures spanning incomprehensible distances. What if consciousness evolved beyond biology? The projection expanded further. Reality itself became visible. Dimensional layers, timelines, quantum possibilities. What if eventually the universe itself became the brain? The bridge fell silent. Because everyone understood the implication. Q wasn't describing technology or evolution. He was describing the first thought. A consciousness woven into existence itself. The words felt impossible. Yet recent events made impossible increasingly believable. Picard stared at the projection. An onslaught woke it? Q's expression darkened. Not intentionally. Then what happened? Two psychic phenomena of unimaginable scale encountered each other. The answer sounded deceptively simple. But the consequences were catastrophic. Because every psychic interaction weakened the prison. Every exchange. Every observation. Every moment of awareness. The first thought wasn't escaping through force. It was escaping through recognition. The prison had been designed to suppress awareness. Now awareness was growing. And awareness was breaking the locks. Elsewhere, the Borg Collective reached a conclusion few believed possible. They requested diplomacy. Not with the Federation. Not with the Romulans. Not with any known power. With Onslaught. The proposal shocked every remaining Borg queen. Yet logic demanded it. Conventional resistance was meaningless. Assimilation was impossible. Destruction risked accelerating unknown outcomes. Negotiation became the only remaining option. A single cube entered neutral territory. Moments later, Onslaught appeared before it. Not physically. Psychically. His giant image manifested across every system simultaneously. The Borg Queen observed him carefully. State your purpose. Onslaught smiled. An expression that somehow carried more menace than open hostility. You fear extinction. We evaluate probabilities. Fear. The Queen ignored the correction. The entity within the prison threatens all biological and technological life. Interesting. The Queen continued. Alliances recommended. The surrounding drones remained motionless. Millions of calculations unfolded throughout the collective. The galaxy waited. Onslaught's answer would shape everything. For several seconds he remained silent. Then he laughed. A deep psychic sound that echoed across minds rather than space. Alliance. His crimson eyes brightened. You misunderstand me. The Queen narrowed her gaze. Clarify. Onslaught floated closer. The moment I learned something greater existed. His voice lowered. I stopped caring about everything else. The Queen processed the statement. And for the first time understood the true danger. Onslaught wasn't interested in saving the galaxy. He wasn't interested in ruling it. He wasn't interested in surviving. He wanted confrontation. Challenge. Transcendence. If battling the first thought shattered reality, he might still do it. Because he needed to know whether he could win. The Borg cube retreated immediately. Negotiations ended. Hope vanished. Far away inside the prison itself, subtle changes continued. The black door appeared once more. This time not in dreams. In reality. Tiny manifestations emerged throughout the galaxy. Floating tears in space. Dark rectangles suspended in midair. Most existed only seconds before vanishing. Yet each appearance lasted slightly longer than the last. Scientists monitored them obsessively. The data made no sense. The doors possessed impossible properties. Mass without mass. Energy without energy. Presence without location. And each manifestation expanded the prison's instability. The countdown had begun. No one knew how much time remained. Days, weeks, months. No answer existed. Then the first casualty arrived. A star vanished. Not exploded. Not collapsed. Vanished. One moment it existed. The next moment it did not. Entire observatories confirmed the event. Every telescope agreed. The star was gone. As though reality had simply forgotten it. Panic spread immediately. Because the missing star represented something unprecedented. The first thought wasn't awake. Not fully. Yet even sleeping. It was already affecting existence. And the effects were accelerating. Hours later another star disappeared. Then a third. Then an entire planetary system. The galaxy itself was beginning to lose pieces. Like a dream dissolving upon waking. Back at the preserver machine, Onslaught stood before the prison core. Golden energy storms raged around him. Reality twisted. Dimensions folded. The machine struggled to maintain containment. Yet Onslaught ignored all of it. His attention focused solely on the consciousness beyond the door. Then suddenly, The voice returned. Not to the galaxy. Not to dreamers. To him alone. Ancient. Curious. Come. You are not from this universe. For the first time since entering the Star Trek cosmos, Onslaught experienced surprise. The first thought had learned. Adapted. Observed. It understood him now. Onslaught's eyes glowed brighter. And you are imprisoned. A long silence followed. Then came the response. One sentence. One sentence that chilled even Onslaught. No. Across the machine, alarms erupted. Ancient systems activated. Containment fields failed. Reality cracked. And somewhere beyond the black door, something smiled. Do you want me to continue? What if the prison was never actually holding the first thought? And what if the entire galaxy had misunderstood its purpose for millions of years? Because if the prison wasn't keeping something inside, then what exactly was it protecting the universe from? The answer emerged within seconds of the first thought's chilling response. No. The single word echoed through Onslaught's consciousness. Not angry. Not hostile. Simply factual. And somehow that made it far worse. Around the preserver machine, containment systems began failing at unprecedented rates. Golden energy conduits ruptured. Stars embedded within the machine's architecture shifted from their ancient orbits. Entire sectors of the structure awakened simultaneously. Emergency protocols dormant for millions of years activated. The machine was reacting. Not because the first thought was escaping. Because it was trying desperately to explain something. Ancient messages buried deep within its system suddenly unlocked. Onslaught absorbed them instantly. Millions of years of information flooded his mind. The truth revealed itself. And for the first time since his creation, Onslaught stopped smiling. The preservers had lied. Or more accurately, history had misunderstood them. The machine had never been a prison. It was a shield. A barrier. A filter separating reality from something beyond it. The first thought was not the captive. It was the lock. Everything went silent. Even Onslaught struggled to process the revelation. The first thought had not been imprisoned. It had willingly remained within the machine for millions of years. Guarding something. Containing something. Protecting existence itself. And now that containment was weakening. Not because the first thought wanted freedom. Because it was losing strength. Suddenly countless fragmented memories became clear. The disappearing stars. The collapsing timelines. The psychic dreams. The black door. All symptoms. All warnings. The machine wasn't opening. It was breaking. And something on the other side was pushing. Something that terrified even the first thought. Thousands of light years away, the consequences arrived. A Federation colony near the edge of explored space ceased to exist. No explosion. No attack. No distress signal. One moment 30 million people lived there. The next moment the planet was gone. Every ship nearby recorded the event. Witnesses described the same phenomenon. Space folded inward. Darkness appeared. Then everything vanished. The colony wasn't destroyed. It was erased. As if reality itself had deleted the location. Starfleet entered full emergency mobilization. Panic spread across every major world. News networks broadcast constant updates. Markets collapsed. Governments prepared evacuation plans. Religious movements exploded overnight. The galaxy sensed catastrophe approaching, even if nobody fully understood its nature. On Vulcan, centuries of emotional discipline began fracturing. On Betazoids, telepaths reported overwhelming psychic pressure. Across Klingon space, warriors openly discussed the possibility of universal extinction. For once, nobody dismissed such fears. Because evidence kept accumulating. Reality was dying. Slowly. Relentlessly. And nobody knew how to stop it. Aboard the Enterprise, Q returned. This time he did not appear alone. Several members of the Continuum manifested alongside him. The sight shocked everyone. Multiple Q almost never involved themselves in mortal affairs. If they were here, the situation had become unimaginably serious. Picard studied them carefully. You've decided to intervene. One of the Q shook her head. No. The answer caught everyone off guard. Then why are you here? Another Q looked toward the stars. To observe. Picard frowned. Observe what? The response came quietly. The end. Silence consumed the bridge. No one spoke. No one moved. Even hearing those words felt impossible. Picard eventually broke the silence. The Continuum can reshape galaxies. Yes. You can alter timelines. Yes. You can create and destroy matter. Yes. His voice hardened. Then do something. The Q exchanged glances. For a brief moment they almost seemed uncomfortable. Finally Q himself answered. You assume omnipotence means unlimited authority. What does that mean? Q looked directly at him. There are layers to existence, Jean-Luc. His playful tone was gone. Entirely gone. Some forces operate beneath reality. The projection of the galaxy appeared. Then dimensional structures. Then stranger geometries. Then things beyond description. We exist within the framework. The image expanded further. Something vast appeared outside everything. Something impossible to comprehend. We do not control the framework. The implication hit everyone simultaneously. Even the Q feared whatever lay beyond the machine. Meanwhile, the Borg Collective reached its own breaking point. Across countless vessels, psychological instability spread. The fragment of individuality Onslaught had introduced weeks earlier continued growing. Drones remembered families, homeworlds, childhoods, dreams. The collective struggled to suppress them. Every effort failed. Because now another influence had entered the network. The dreams. The black door. The whispering voice. Even drones began experiencing visions. A phenomenon that should have been impossible. Billions of interconnected minds saw the same image. The same darkness. The same ancient presence. And the first thought noticed them. For the first time, it actively reached outward. Not aggressively. Not violently. It was asking for help. The realization stunned everyone capable of perceiving it. The ancient consciousness wasn't attacking. It was warning. Begging. Pleading. Across telepathic species, fragments of its message emerged. The translations varied. Yet every version contained the same essential meaning. Do not let the barrier fail. That single sentence spread throughout the galaxy. Scientists heard it. Empaths heard it. Telepaths heard it. Even artificial intelligences detected echoes of it. The warning was universal. The barrier must survive. But why? The answer finally arrived from the preserver machine itself. Ancient archives unlocked completely. Starfleet researchers deciphered enough data to reconstruct the truth. Millions of years ago, the universe had encountered something unprecedented. Not a civilization. Not an entity. A condition. A force. A phenomenon existing outside conventional reality. The preservers lacked language to describe it accurately. Most translations rendered it as the void beyond thought. It consumed possibility itself. Not worlds. Not stars. Possibility. Every future collapsed wherever it spread. Every choice disappeared. Life became static. Meaningless. Frozen. The first thought had volunteered to contain it. Using its own consciousness as part of the barrier. For millions of years it endured isolation. Guarding existence. Protecting every civilization that would one day emerge. And now, the barrier was failing. Because the first thought was exhausted. Its strength fading. Its awareness fragmenting. The galaxy wasn't witnessing a prison break. It was witnessing a guard collapsing after millions of years on duty. Back at the machine, Onslaught absorbed the entire history. For the first time, uncertainty entered his thoughts. The void beyond thought. A force unlike anything he had encountered. Not a rival. Not an opponent. Something fundamentally alien. Something that might not even possess consciousness. Yet even as he analyzed it, another realization emerged. The first thought was dying. The guardian sustaining the barrier could not continue much longer. Eventually it would fail. And when it failed, the void would enter reality. The stars disappearing now were merely the beginning. A preview. A symptom. The true catastrophe remained ahead. Then suddenly the first thought spoke again. This time not only to Onslaught. To the entire galaxy. Every living mind heard the message simultaneously. Every species. Every world. Every civilization. The voice sounded weaker now. Ancient. Tired. Yet still impossibly vast. I cannot hold it much longer. Billions froze. Entire planets fell silent. Then came the second sentence. The one that changed everything. There is only one being here powerful enough to replace me. Across the galaxy, confusion spread. Oh, what being? Who possessed such power? Then the first thought answered. One name. One impossible name. A name that echoed across every mind in existence. Onslaught. Silence followed. Absolute silence. And for the first time since arriving in the Star Trek universe, every civilization stopped fearing the same question. Can Onslaught be stopped? Instead they feared a far more terrifying possibility. What if he was the only thing standing between reality and oblivion? Do you want me to continue? What if the galaxy's greatest monster suddenly became its last hope? And what if the only being powerful enough to save reality was the very nightmare responsible for bringing it to the brink of collapse? The moment the first thought spoke Onslaught's name, the entire galaxy changed. Fear remained, but it transformed. For weeks, every civilization had viewed Onslaught as the crisis, the invader, the psychic plague, the cosmic threat. Now a horrifying possibility emerged. Perhaps he had only been the beginning. Perhaps something far worse waited beyond the barrier. And perhaps the galaxy needed him. No one knew how to react. Federation worlds erupted into debate. Klingon leaders demanded immediate action. Romulan strategists suspected deception. The Borg Collective entered millions of new simulations. Every scenario led toward the same conclusion. If the first thought was telling the truth, reality itself depended on Onslaught. That possibility was almost impossible to accept. Yet the evidence continued mounting. The stars kept disappearing. The black doors appeared more frequently. Entire regions of space experienced reality failures. Timelines overlapped. Histories changed. Some citizens woke with memories belonging to alternate versions of themselves. Others vanished entirely. Existence was becoming unstable. The barrier was dying. And somewhere within the heart of the preserver machine, Onslaught remained motionless. For the first time in countless years he was thinking. Not plotting. Not dominating. Thinking. The first thought's request lingered within his consciousness. Replace me. Become the lock. Become the barrier. Remain behind. Forever. The proposal bordered on absurd. Onslaught had spent his existence pursuing power and freedom. Now the universe demanded eternal imprisonment. Not for punishment. For survival. The irony was almost amusing. Yet beneath that irony lurked something unfamiliar. Doubt. He examined the ancient archives again. Every calculation produced the same result. The first thought could not endure much longer. The barrier would fail. The void beyond thought would enter reality. Civilization would collapse. Not eventually. Very soon. And there truly appeared to be only one viable replacement. Elsewhere, the first thought continued weakening. Across billions of minds, fragments of its awareness appeared unexpectedly. Some heard whispers. Some experienced visions. Some felt overwhelming emotions. The ancient guardian was no longer capable of maintaining perfect control. Its consciousness leaked into reality. And through those fragments, civilizations began understanding the enormity of its sacrifice. Millions of years. Alone. Watching. Enduring. Protecting. Never ruling. Never conquering. Never demanding worship. Simply standing watch against an endless darkness. The realization spread rapidly. The first thought wasn't a god. It was a sentinel. One that had guarded existence longer than most stars had existed. And now that sentinel was collapsing. Aboard the Enterprise, Picard sat alone in his ready room. Outside the window, stars drifted silently. For the first time in years he found himself struggling to define right and wrong. Normally the answer seemed clear. Normally morality possessed structure. Direction. Meaning. This situation felt different. A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. You are troubled. Picard turned. Q stood near the window. Surprisingly subdued. I suppose that's obvious. Q nodded. More than usual. Picard studied him. You believe the first thought. I do. An onslaught. Q remained silent for several seconds. That is a more difficult question. Picard stood. If he refuses, we're finished. Most likely. If he accepts. Again Q hesitated. And again that hesitation frightened him. What happens? The omnipotent being looked toward the stars. I don't know. The answer landed heavily. You don't know? No. The admission sounded almost painful. Why? Q's expression grew distant. Because nobody has ever attempted this before. Nobody. Not the continuum. Not the preservers. Not even the first thought. The uncertainty stretched beyond prediction itself. Onslaught might save reality. Or become something even more dangerous. Neither outcome could be calculated. Meanwhile, throughout the galaxy, the barrier's deterioration accelerated dramatically. The black doors no longer appeared for seconds. They remained for hours. Entire fleets monitored them. Scientists studied them. No one dared approach too closely. Then someone did. A small Federation survey vessel investigating one manifestation moved within scanning range. The crew never transmitted another message. Observers watched in horror as the ship touched the darkness. It did not explode. It did not disintegrate. It simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed. Removed. As though reality no longer recognized it. The footage spread throughout the galaxy. Panic followed. For the first time, the true danger became visible. The void beyond thought was reaching through the cracks. And every contact erased possibility itself. Not merely matter. Possibility. Potential futures vanished. Potential histories vanished. Potential existence vanished. The implications defied comprehension. Back at the preserver machine, the first thought finally revealed itself fully. The black door opened. Not completely. Only enough. Golden light flooded outward. Onslaught stared. For weeks, every civilization had imagined a monster. A cosmic horror. An eldritch god. The reality was stranger. There was no physical form. No body. No face. Only a vast field of luminous consciousness. An ocean of thought stretching beyond perception. The first thought wasn't an individual. Not anymore. It had evolved beyond individuality millions of years earlier. What remained resembled a living universe. And it was fading. The light dimmed visibly. The Guardian was dying. You see now. The voice echoed gently. Onslaught observed the weakening structure. The barrier cannot survive. No. And if I replace you? The ancient consciousness remained silent for a long moment. Finally it answered. You may succeed. May. The first thought radiated something resembling sadness. Or you may become something entirely new. That answer irritated him. Clarify. The barrier changes those who maintain it. More silence followed. Then came a revelation even Onslaught had not expected. I was not always what you see before you. The psychic giant focused completely. The first thought continued. Long ago I was small. Images emerged. A distant civilization. Ancient beyond comprehension. A single being. Curious. Mortal. Alive. Onslaught watched in astonishment. The Guardian had once been an ordinary individual. Millions upon millions of years of containment had transformed it into something vast. Something cosmic. Something unrecognizable. The implication became obvious. If Onslaught accepted, he would not remain Onslaught. Eventually he would become something else. Something larger. Something stranger. Perhaps something incapable of remembering who he had been. For the first time, the decision gained personal weight. This was no longer about sacrifice. It was about identity. Would anything remain of him? Would his ambitions survive? His memories? His consciousness? Or would he dissolve into another eternal guardian? Across the galaxy, events forced the issue. The barrier suffered catastrophic failure. Thousands of black doors opened simultaneously. Entire sectors experienced reality collapse. Stars vanished by the dozens. Planets disappeared. Subspace fractured. The crisis had entered its final stage. Even the Q continuum mobilized. Not to fight. To prepare. Every advanced civilization understood the same truth. Time was running out. Rapidly. Then something unexpected happened. A message spread throughout the galaxy. Not from the first thought. Not from Starfleet. Not from the Q. From Onslaught. Every conscious being heard it. Every species. Every world. Every mind. His voice carried across existence itself. Come. Powerful. Certain. I require information. Billions listened. I wish to understand the civilizations I may be saving. Confusion spread instantly. Then realization followed. Onslaught had not rejected the offer. But he had not accepted it either. He was deciding. And before making that choice, he wanted to know whether the galaxy deserved survival. The psychic presence expanded. Touching worlds. Touching minds. Touching histories. Humanity. Vulcans. Klingon. Romulans. Andorians. Bajorans. Countless others. He began examining everything. Their triumphs. Their failures. Their cruelty. Their compassion. Their hopes. Their fears. The entire galaxy suddenly found itself under judgment. And as Onslaught looked deeper and deeper into the hearts of trillions, his final decision drew closer. A decision that would determine whether reality survived the coming dawn. Do you want me to continue? What if the fate of reality no longer depended on strength, technology, or cosmic power, but on a single question inside the mind of the most dangerous psychic being ever to exist? And what if the answer to that question would decide whether trillions lived or vanished forever? As the barrier continued breaking apart, Onslaught looked into the soul of the galaxy. Not metaphorically. Literally. His consciousness spread across quadrants like an invisible storm. Every civilization became an open book. Every secret, every dream, every shame, every act of courage, every betrayal. Nothing remained hidden. The experience was unlike anything he had ever known. Throughout his existence, he had viewed sentient life as pieces on a board. Resources, obstacles, tools. Now he saw the whole picture. A mother on Earth comforting a frightened child during another night of Black Door nightmares. A Vulcan master maintaining emotional control despite knowing reality itself might soon collapse. A Klingon captain refusing evacuation because civilian transports needed protection first. A former Borg drone helping others recover memories stolen by the collective. Countless moments. Countless choices. Small acts that would never appear in history books. Yet together they formed something unexpected. Meaning, the galaxy was flawed. Deeply flawed. Violent. Divided. Imperfect. But it continued trying. And somehow that fascinated him more than any empire ever had. Across Federation space, people began noticing strange phenomena. The nightmares lessened. The psychic pressure weakened. For brief moments they felt something else. Not fear. Observation. As if a vast intelligence was quietly listening. Learning. Understanding. Onslaught was seeing them. Not as subjects. Not as prey. As individuals. Meanwhile, the first thought weakened further. The luminous ocean of consciousness flickered like a dying star. Entire portions of the barrier collapsed. The void beyond thought pressed harder against reality. Black doors now appeared across thousands of worlds. Some stretched kilometers high. Others hovered above oceans. A few emerged in orbit around planets. Every manifestation expanded slowly, patiently, relentlessly. And behind each one waited oblivion. Not destruction. Absence. The complete removal of possibility itself. The future narrowed with every passing hour. Entire timelines vanished. Histories condensed. Choices disappeared. Reality was losing options. Losing potential. Losing life. At Starfleet headquarters, emergency projections estimated less than 72 hours before total barrier failure. Nobody argued. Nobody proposed alternative theories. The evidence was overwhelming. Civilization had entered its final countdown. Yet strangely, panic began giving way to unity. Old enemies opened communication channels. Federation ships coordinated with Romulan vessels. Klingon fleets protected evacuation routes. Even the Borg Collective shared tactical data with former adversaries. For perhaps the first time in galactic history, survival mattered more than politics. The irony was impossible to ignore. It had taken the threat of universal extinction to unite everyone. Deep within the continuum, the Q watched silently. Countless futures stretched before them. Most ended in darkness. Some ended in silence. A handful ended in outcomes even they struggled to comprehend. Q studied those futures carefully. One possibility appeared repeatedly. Not victory. Transformation. Reality surviving. But changed. Fundamentally changed. And at the center of every surviving future stood Onslaught. Yet not the Onslaught who had entered the universe. Something else. Something becoming. Back at the preserver machine, the psychic giant remained motionless. The galaxy's histories flowed through him endlessly. He had seen everything. The wars. The discoveries. The sacrifices. The mistakes. The triumphs. Now came the harder question. Was it worth saving? The old Onslaught knew his answer. No. Power mattered. Dominance mattered. The weak existed to serve the strong. That philosophy had guided him for years. Yet the evidence before him challenged everything. Again and again he encountered examples of individuals choosing selflessness over power. Compassion over control. Hope over certainty. The pattern repeated endlessly. And he found himself unable to dismiss it. Then the first thought spoke once more. Its voice sounded faint. Exhausted. Near the end. Have you reached a conclusion? Onslaught stared into the luminous sea. You protected them for millions of years. Yes. Why? A surprisingly simple question. The ancient consciousness remained silent for several moments. Then it answered. Because they deserved the chance to become more. The response lingered. Simple. Yet profound. Not because civilization was perfect. Not because it was guaranteed success. Because possibility mattered. Potential mattered. The right to become something greater mattered. For the first time, Onslaught understood what the void threatened. Not existence. Possibility. The future itself. Every dream. Every choice. Every chance to grow. The void erased all of it. And suddenly he hated it. Truly hated it. Not because it threatened him. Because it threatened potential. The realization surprised even him. Then the final collapse began. Across the galaxy, alarms erupted simultaneously. The preserver machine entered catastrophic failure. Ancient stars embedded within its framework exploded. Containment lattices shattered. Reality fractured. The black doors opened wider than ever before. Darkness spilled into existence. Entire sectors disappeared instantly. Federation fleets vanished. Nebulae vanished. Planets vanished. The void beyond thought had arrived. Not fully. Only partially. Yet partial arrival was enough. The effects spread with horrifying speed. Choices vanished from reality. People found themselves unable to imagine alternatives. Entire civilizations lost creativity. Scientists forgot discoveries. Artists forgot inspiration. History itself began freezing into singular outcomes. The universe was dying. And everyone knew it. The first thought flickered violently. Its ancient consciousness finally reaching exhaustion. The Guardian's watch was ending. Millions of years. Over. At last. The luminous ocean turned toward Onslaught. No words were necessary. The meaning was obvious. No. Either he acted now, or reality ended. Across the galaxy billions watched. Federation officers. Klingon warriors. Romulan commanders. Borg drones. The Q continuum. Every mind focused on the same moment. The same choice. The same impossible decision. Would Onslaught sacrifice himself? Would he abandon everything he had ever been? Or would he preserve his identity and allow existence to collapse? For several seconds that felt like eternity, nothing happened. Then Onslaught moved. He floated toward the opening barrier. Toward the darkness. Toward the place where the first thought had stood watch for millions of years. The void reacted immediately. The surrounding reality twisted. Stars vanished. Dimensions folded. The darkness recognized him. And for the first time since entering this universe, Onslaught unleashed his full power. Not against civilizations. Not against worlds. Against the void itself. A psychic explosion erupted across existence. Every telepath in the galaxy screamed. Every sensor overloaded. Every star seemed to flare simultaneously. The force of the collision shattered entire layers of reality. The preserver machine began disintegrating. The first thought's remaining consciousness scattered into luminous fragments. And in the center of the storm, Onslaught entered the barrier. The process began instantly. His identity stretched, expanded, transformed. He felt every civilization, every timeline, every possibility. The sheer scale threatened to consume him, to erase him, to remake him. Yet he continued forward, deeper, further, until he reached the heart of the barrier itself. Then reality stopped. The galaxy held its breath. Because no one knew whether Onslaught had succeeded. No one knew whether he still existed. No one knew what would emerge from the storm. Only one thing was certain. The next few moments would determine the fate of all existence. And somewhere within the collapsing barrier, something new was being born. Do you want me to continue with the final part 8? What if the being about to emerge from the heart of the collapsing barrier was neither Onslaught nor the first thought, but something entirely new? And what if the future of every civilization depended on whether that new existence remembered a single thing? Compassion. The storm consumed everything. Across the galaxy, stars disappeared behind walls of psychic light. Subspace collapsed into chaotic waves. Time itself seemed to hesitate. The barrier, which had endured for millions of years, was breaking apart faster than any system could compensate. At its center stood Onslaught. Or what had once been Onslaught. The transformation had begun the moment he entered the breach. Now it accelerated beyond control. His consciousness expanded across realities, across timelines, across possibilities. He felt entire civilizations as individual thoughts. He felt galaxies as emotions. He felt history unfolding simultaneously in every direction. The experience should have destroyed him. Any ordinary mind would have shattered instantly. Yet Onslaught endured. Because he had never been ordinary. For the first time in his existence, however, power was not enough. Strength could not solve this. Dominance could not solve this. Control could not solve this. The void beyond thought wasn't an enemy that could be defeated. It was a condition. A force. An absence. Trying to fight it directly was like trying to punch darkness. And slowly, painfully, Onslaught began understanding what the first thought had learned millions of years earlier. The barrier was never a weapon. It was an act of will. A declaration. A refusal to surrender possibility. The void consumed futures. The barrier preserved them. The struggle between them was not physical. It was philosophical. Existence versus non-existence. Potential versus certainty. Hope versus oblivion. The realization changed everything. Outside the barrier, billions watched reality unravel. Entire fleets hung motionless near the preserver machine. Federation vessels. Romulan warbirds. Klingon battle cruisers. Even Borg cubes. Enemies who would normally destroy one another now stared toward the same cosmic horizon. Waiting. Praying. Hoping. Nobody knew what success would look like. Nobody knew whether success was even possible. Then the darkness expanded. A shockwave erupted from the breach. Thousands of stars vanished instantly. Entire sectors disappeared from astronomical records. Screams echoed across telepathic worlds. The void was winning. Inside the barrier, Onslaught felt it too. The pressure increased. Possibilities collapsed around him. Alternate futures died by the trillions. Reality narrowed. The universe itself seemed to be shrinking. And for the first time since his creation, Onslaught faced genuine defeat. Not physical defeat. Existential defeat. The understanding that his power might not be enough. The old Onslaught would have raged. Would have lashed out. Would have refused reality. Instead, something unexpected happened. He remembered. He remembered the people he had observed. The countless minds he had explored. The ordinary lives scattered throughout the galaxy. The mother comforting her child. The Vulcan maintaining discipline despite fear. The Klingon choosing sacrifice over glory. The former Borg helping strangers. Tiny moments. Insignificant by cosmic standards. Yet somehow those moments persisted in his memory. Because they represented something the void could never understand. Choice. The ability to become more than you were yesterday. The ability to surprise the universe. And suddenly Onslaught realized why the first thought had protected reality for so long. Not because civilization had achieved perfection. Because it hadn't. Because imperfection created possibility. Because growth required uncertainty. Because the future mattered. The revelation ignited something inside him. Something stronger than hatred. Stronger than ambition. Purpose. The barrier responded immediately. Across its collapsing structure, new patterns formed. Light surged through damaged systems. Ancient preserver technology awakened one final time. The machine recognized a successor. The void pressed harder. Reality trembled. Entire dimensions cracked. Yet Onslaught no longer resisted alone. Every mind he had touched left an imprint. Every civilization he had studied contributed something. A memory. An idea. A possibility. The barrier became more than a prison. More than a shield. It became a reflection of existence itself. Trillions of lives. Trillions of choices. Trillions of futures. Standing together against oblivion. The conflict reached its climax. Across the universe, every telepath suddenly experienced the same vision. They saw Onslaught standing before an infinite darkness. They saw the void stretching endlessly beyond comprehension. And they saw him make a choice. Not as a conqueror. Not as a tyrant. Not as a monster. As a guardian. The transformation completed. The name Onslaught began fading. Not erased. Evolved. The same way a star eventually becomes something greater than the cloud that birthed it. His consciousness expanded beyond individuality. Beyond ego. Beyond ambition. He felt himself becoming part of the barrier. Part of reality. Part of the endless struggle protecting possibility. The process was irreversible. There would be no return. No victory celebration. No reward. No freedom. Only responsibility. Forever. For a brief moment, the first thought appeared beside him. Not physically. Spiritually. A final fragment of the ancient guardian. Its fading light shimmered against the darkness. You understand now. Onslaught looked toward the endless void. Yes. The first thought seemed almost relieved. For millions of years it had carried the burden alone. Now someone else understood. Someone else would continue the watch. The ancient consciousness began dissolving. Returning to the universe it had protected. Before disappearing completely, it offered one final message. Not to Onslaught. To everyone. Every species. Every civilization. Every living mind. Do not waste the future. Then it was gone. The last remnant of the first thought vanished into starlight. And Onslaught stood alone. The new guardian. The new lock. The new sentinel. The final confrontation lasted only seconds. Yet those seconds reshaped eternity. The barrier sealed. The darkness retreated. The black doors throughout the galaxy shattered simultaneously. The disappearing stars returned. Timelines stabilized. Reality healed. The void beyond thought was contained once more. Not destroyed. Never destroyed. But held. Watched. Endured. The crisis ended. Slowly, systems across the galaxy confirmed the impossible. The collapse had stopped. The barrier held. Existence survived. Celebrations erupted across countless worlds. Federation citizens filled streets. Klingon warriors raised cups in honor of a battle they had never fought. Romulans quietly acknowledged survival. Even within the Borg Collective, billions of drones experienced something strangely similar to relief. The galaxy lived. Months passed. Then years. The scars remained. Civilizations rebuilt. Scientists studied the remnants of the preserver machine. Philosophers debated the meaning of what had occurred. Entire religions emerged around the sacrifice of the first thought and the transformation of Onslaught. Yet one mystery endured. Was he still there? Watching? Waiting? No one knew. Until one day, a young Betazoid child looked toward the night sky and smiled. Her parents asked why. The child pointed toward a distant star. I heard someone. The adults exchanged worried glances. What did they say? The child thought for a moment, then answered. He said the future is safe. Across unimaginable distances, beyond dimensions, beyond ordinary perception, something vast observed the living galaxy. Not ruling, not judging, simply watching, protecting. The being once called Onslaught no longer hungered for conquest. The universe had changed him. Or perhaps revealed something that had always been buried beneath the rage. He watched civilizations rise and fall. Watched discoveries unfold. Watched new possibilities emerge. And every time a child dreamed of tomorrow, every time a scientist pursued the unknown, every time someone chose hope over despair, the barrier strengthened. Because possibility itself was the true defense against oblivion. Far beyond the stars, where the void beyond thought still waited in endless darkness, a silent guardian remained at his post. Alone. Eternal. Unseen. Yet no longer a nightmare. For the first time in his existence, Onslaught had become something he never imagined possible. Not the destroyer of worlds. Not the ruler of minds. But the protector of the future itself. And as the galaxy continued its journey into the unknown, one truth remained forever woven into reality. The greatest monsters are not always defined by what they destroy. Sometimes they are defined by what they choose to save. The end.